this video is all about the Autism Partnership Method, or the AP method, and that's what we do when we're working with the children here in our office and how we train our staff what to do. And over the years, we've really evolved our approach tremendously, and every year there's new advances, differences, programs, different approaches to what we do with the children. This is one of the things that makes this agency an exciting place to work, because we're always getting better at what we do. There's lots of umbrellas of different approaches under ABA, or Applied Behavior Analysis. There's things like pivotal response training, verbal behavior. ABA can be very, very protocol driven. That means that it's very data driven, and what the staff need to do is very preordained. And the goal is to write down exactly what's going to happen in the session, in terms of what does the staff say, how many times do they say it, how do they take data on it, what kind of prompt they use, how they assess reinforcement for the student. And the goal is to have every session pretty much the same. And these sessions generate data and information about the student's performance. This data is then analyzed and looked at by maybe a BCBA or a clinician who makes judgment and basis on what they see in the data as to what decisions they make about changing and adjusting the program. Staff are trained to really follow these protocols really, really closely so that they can produce accurate data. Because if they're not following the protocol, then the data might be different, and we might be misled as to whether the student's doing well or not well, and it may not be due to the program, it may be due to the other things that the therapist did in the session. It's not dissimilar to perhaps if you think about a university protocol for research, where they have to follow very strict rules about what to do so that they can get very specific kind of data that shows the approach is effective and it wasn't due to other kinds of variables. We believe that there's definitely a room for clinical judgment and in-the-moment assessment, which is a little different. That means we try to work with the child who's in front of us, and based upon their responses, based upon what they do in the session, we're going to make changes and we're going to make adjustments all the time. So we're teaching our staff how to make those judgments, how to make those considerations, not just to follow a protocol, be goal directed, but how to maximize the progress of the student in the session, and how to really, really make good decisions and do good teaching in order to help the student learn the fastest. Examples would be, for reinforcement, we'll be assessing continually through our session whether the student likes or doesn't like reinforcement. We'll be making clinical judgments when to rotate those reinforcers and what kinds of reinforcers to use, as opposed to doing a very structured preference assessment, which might take 5 to 10 minutes away from our teaching time. We teach our staff when to use prompts effectively, based upon the student's history of failure, or what they know about the student's acquisition of this task over the past week, what kind of prompt to use, based upon, again, the student's performance. So we may base decisions around the student's behavior, and we may switch to do different kinds of curriculum during a session to facilitate behavioral momentum, or to facilitate success in other kinds of tasks, or to maintain attention. We're doing behavioral assessment all the time, looking at functions of behavior, purposes of behavior. What does the student want? How is the student's physiological condition today? Is he tired? Has he not had much sleep? Is he less likely to work as hard today? When do we provide reinforcement? We want to be always thinning the schedule of reinforcement. What kind of reinforcement? Is it externally based reinforcers? Do we try to encourage more social reinforcement? These are all decisions our staff may make in the moment with some general guidelines. Many considerations, which makes the kind of therapy we do, by the way, much more complicated and difficult, which is why our staff need a lot more training, because again, we're training them to really think in the moment and make good decisions. But we feel like that this kind of therapy can really help maximize the progress of the students. Our approach also utilizes as much natural reinforcement as we can. We see reinforcement as a paradigm for more primary reinforcers like food, up to more very intrinsic reinforcers like feeling good about learning something, completing something, the joy of learning how to do something new, is up here. And then there's everything in between, such as social reinforcers or toys and activities. We're really always trying to push our students down that reinforcement paradigm. In our programming, we will spend time developing different kinds of reinforcers, how to make things that previously weren't very reinforcing. How do we get students interested into things that other children are interested in? This is a main drive of our program, because we know over time we've got to fade and have those students working for more naturally based, more things that occur in the natural environment, reinforcers. We really work with the whole child. We really have to be developing programs around all things. We have a real emphasis in our program on learning how to learn behavior, in terms of teaching students how to become better learners in one-on-one, in group, in social settings, in natural settings, so that we don't have to do as much teaching, so they become better at learning, faster at learning, so that we can accelerate their progress in all curriculum areas. We have a great emphasis on really good behavior, emotional regulation, not just speech and academic kinds of areas. We focus a lot on social, and we focus a lot on play. We really need to make sure that the program is really balanced and rounded in all areas, so that we can really help the students to develop all their skills and capabilities. The other emphasis I'd say is probably on staff training. Because we do the things in the way that we do, staff really require extensive training to be able to know what to do, to be able to make those in-the-moment decisions, to be able to really make good clinical judgments. It takes a lot of experience, it takes a lot of training. So we have to be providing that here, and there are many, many different degrees of staff training. Here you can see a general picture of what our staff training pyramid looks like in terms of hours and layers. But we invest a huge amount of our time, money, and energy in really making sure that our staff are really well equipped in delivering a high quality model. Another area is data collection. In terms of how we collect data is maybe a little different. We are often not doing trial by trial data on every single thing that the student does. We're not correlating huge books and files for every session of data that's been filled out. We try to look at data, which is a very important component of what we do, in a more functional and driven way, in terms of asking questions like, what information do we really need to know? What's important for us to get? How can we take that data in a way that doesn't interfere as much with the learning of the student and our engagement with the student? Because if every 5 seconds I've got to turn away from the student and be looking at a sheet and marking down data, that takes away my time from engaging with the student, doing work with the student. So I want to get accurate information, I want to get accurate data, but I don't want to do it in a way that really affects the way that we conduct the session.